Newspaper of Record in front. Juliet Foxtrot and La Signare trying to run her down with 3/16 of a mile to run. Newspaper of Record. Something left in the tank here. A furlong out. Beau Recall has kicked it in. And here she comes on the outside. Beau Recall up alongside of Newspaper of Record. And right on by. Beau Recall and Manny Franco by 2 on the wire.
And welcome back one more time to another Breeders' Cup preview here on Racing Rundown. Today we're going to get into the First Lady Stakes. 6 older fillies and mares are here, so we will get into all of them like we usually do, break them down individually, and get into reasons why you may want to pick them. So we'll start off with the number 1, Beau Recall. 4 starts this year, a win, a second, and 2 off-the-board finishes, but both of those off-the-board finishes definitely did come with major excuses. And specifically a race like the Mint Julep, that's a complete line-through race. If you go back and watch it, she was 9th in that race, but it was a complete blanket finish, and she was only about 2.5 lengths behind the winner of that race. So that race doesn't really matter much in the grand scheme of things. She is coming out of a win. That's the really important thing. She's coming out of a win in the Distaff Turf Mile on Kentucky Derby weekend, and she also did beat Newspaper of Record, who we will get into and is a major factor in this race. The problem that I would say with Beau Recall is that she definitely is pace dependent, which is the reason why she lost the yellow ribbon at Del Mar. There wasn't really any speed signed on in that race at all. Brad Cox kind of knew that going into the race, and he said that following it. That was also less of a factor with the Mint Julep, considering that she did close very well in that race, but she did have traffic to deal with, and there were, like I already mentioned, lots of excuses with that, in addition to the fact that it wasn't necessarily the fastest pace on there. So she does kind of need something. I don't know how much that's going to affect her here. Obviously, it remains to be seen in the races that she's run against Newspaper of Record. Obviously, with the win in the Distaff Turf Mile and the second place finish in the Just Game earlier this year. All that being said, I think Beau Recall is definitely a horse that you want to consider in here. Maybe you don't like her necessarily to win, but I think she's definitely an underneath consideration at the very minimum, but definitely has a real shot to win this race. We'll move on next to the number 2 horse for Alistar Deleka, coming out of a win in the One Dreamer Stakes at Kentucky Downs. Prior to that start, she was 5th in the Caress, but 2nd in the license fee at Belmont Park on 4th of July weekend. Some of her other starts prior to that last year at Churchill, and going back even further, she was 2nd in the Risk Averse at Saratoga last August. So she does have some good runs in her, like I did mention, the 5th in the Crest Stakes. She was also 5th in the Pin Oak Valley View last fall at Keeneland, so she does have a run over the surface, and that run was in a stake race where she didn't do too hot in. Ultimately, I think Deleka is just a little bit overmatched. Even though she is coming out of that win at Kentucky Downs, she wasn't facing the likes of 2 former Breeders' Cup winners, an Eclipse Award winner, and Beau Recall, who in her own right is a really nice horse. So I don't really like Deleka in terms of winning here, but she definitely is a look underneath in this race. And getting to our number 3 horse, Daddy is a Legend. Throughout her career, always a really consistent runner, knocking on the door in these big graded stakes races, never really getting a win done, but some good placings in graded stakes races, 2 seconds in the Matriarch, good 3rd place finish in the Just a Game last year behind Rushing Fall. But this year she hasn't really looked the part. 2 off-the-board finishes, and she didn't really look that good in either of them. The Kentucky Downs Preview Ladies Turf was a race that she was expected to, if not win, run really well in, and she ran a very dull 9th place finish. She just looked flat in that race. And once again, she was well beaten in the Distaff Turf Mile last time. Even though she didn't run a last place finish, she was 5th. Pretty significantly beaten by the likes of the horses in that race. So given that she hasn't really done much of anything this year to prove that she could win the kind of race of this caliber, and really throughout her career, she has never really proved to be able to beat the top best horses on days like this. She can run with them, but not necessarily beat them. I don't think that she's a win candidate here. She does have a win over the surface at Keeneland, but that was an allowance and maiden company. So I don't really like Daddy is a Legend here. And moving on to number 4, Newspaper of Record, the morning line favorite right now. Likely will go off favored given the track record that Newspaper of Record has. And that Distaff Turf Mile last time is definitely worth getting into deeper. Obviously, she got beat in, but if you listen over on the podcast side of things, and our segment that we do after every week, Buy, Sell, and Hold, one of us on the show, either myself or my co-host, said we were going to hold on Newspaper of Record coming out of that race because there wasn't really anything that you could look at her and say, that's an off performance from her. I think it's more of a thing of Newspaper of Record, her last two of her last three poor efforts, I should say, have come at Churchill Downs. And I don't want to call the Edgewood or the Distaff Turf Mile poor, but, we're used to seeing her be super impressive in these graded stakes races. So to see her get beat is definitely a surprising thing. And I don't think there were a lot of people expecting her to get beat. But looking at the Edgewood, looking at the Distaff Turf Mile, even though she did have the really big performance at Churchill Downs in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, I think it may be more of a Churchill Downs thing with her. That that's the track that she doesn't consistently run well at. She did have the second place finish in the Wonder again, but she has come back to win 2 stakes, including a Grade 1 at Belmont. So we know now that she can run at Belmont Park. So I think it's really just a Churchill Downs thing with her. I think she's the most talented filly in this race. A mile is definitely her best distance, and I think we'll be in for a big performance from her. I'm going to use her on top. Like I alluded to earlier, I don't really trust Beau Recall, and I don't think any of the other fillies in here have shown the ability to beat her in a race like this. So I'm going to be using her to win. And moving on to the next horse, the other Chad Brown in this race, Uni. It seems weird that you're probably going to see the other Chad angle with Uni, even though the other Chad angle in this race probably won't really be that playable, because I don't think Uni would be a very attractive bet. She's going to take a lot of money given her track record, and rightfully so. I mean, Breeders' Cup Mile winner last year, reigning champion female Turf Eclipse Award winner. There's not a lot in that resume not to like, but looking at the 2 bodies of work this year, they've left a lot to be desired. She was well beaten in the Justa game, albeit it was off the layoff, but she came back in the 4-star Dave. Granted, that race didn't really set up well for her or her stablemate Raging Bull. Both of them kind of similar running styles, never really were given a chance to get into the race. But I just don't think Uni has been of form that she was last year. And, I kind of said the same thing about Got Stormy, and I still feel that way about her. But looking at it, Uni's just left a lot to be desired this year. She has won over the course at Keeneland, so that definitely is important. She won this race last year, the First Lady. But for me, I'm going to take a pass on Uni. I don't think the price would be attractive enough to use her as kind of a sneaky angle. She has the reputation, so that definitely, I think, will drag down her odds and really make it so that you don't really want to play her. And getting into the final horse in this race, the longest shot on the board, Crystal Lake, rightfully so for her. She's been running pretty consistently in the Allowance Company. Her last 3 races, a win and 2 seconds. In that company, she does have 1 career start against Stakes Company. That was against the Black Type Company in the Kentucky Downs. Ladies Turf Preview, and she was 8th in that race. And I really, again, kind of the same thing with Deleka. I don't really see a reason why Crystal Lake would be able to step up here and run a winning race against the quality of horses in here. It's really kind of cut and dry with her. Hasn't really done anything of note in the 1 black type race that she was in. Has consistently been in the Allowance and Maiden Company. She's run well in that Allowance Company, albeit, but I think it would take a super effort from her here, and I don't really see a reason that would come. So I will leave her out for here. Now I'm going to get into my picks for this race. Already mentioned that I will take Newspaper of Record on top. I'm going to use Deleka for second. I think that Deleka has the potential to run a really good race here, and I will also use Beau Recall for third. So I'm going to go with a 4-2-1 triple in this race. Again, don't really love Uni in here. Don't trust Daddy as a legend. And like I already said with Crystal Lake, don't think that she is of this caliber. So anyway, that's it for this video. We will see you next time for another Breeders' Cup preview. And we will see you, if you do decide to play this race, good luck. And we will see you next time.
On the outside, 3/4 went in 1:12-1. There in the stretch, Newspaper of Record with something left here. She's got a 3-length lead. Then it's Regal Glory. On the outside is Beau Recall and Uni. Newspaper of Record. She was sparkling today to win the Just a Game in front-running fashion.